Peace. So this week, before I get into this week's episode, I wanted to share a lesson learned. So the fifth annual Pitch Black was held this week right here in Portland as part of Portland Sneaker Week or Sneaker Week PDX or Sneaker Week, which is a celebration of sneakers and the culture around sneakers, from design to art, entertainment, to, very importantly, all the people, especially Black people and other people of color, involved in the creation and development of the culture, but also the creation and development of the design and the energy that goes into the sneakers. And Pitch Black is also a fantastic Black entrepreneur, I guess event would be the right word, created by Stephen Green. Shout out to Stephen. That is all about empowering Black entrepreneurs right here in Portland, but also in other cities that the event has come to. And it's a pitching contest, and the winners split a pot that's paid from the tickets and somewhere else, I suppose. It's a great way to get some energy behind the businesses and the businesses that people are creating, but also what business cannot use some cash, which gets me to my lesson of the day. So I walked in and I sat down, and I was accompanied by my good brother, the Black Man Green Plan, and prepared to enjoy the festivities. And I was struck with a thought and the immediate flash of light and the power of understanding, in that I realized there was no reasonable reason why I was not out there in the field of people pitching their business and creative projects, and especially that this year's one was all about culture. And I realized that the break point, or the moment of the cognitive point, the spot where I made my decision whether I was or wasn't going to put myself out there to pitch, I was in the midst of a number of household stressors and professional needs and time crunches. And I looked at the flyer and the notices, like, yeah, if you got a business you want to pitch, contact Steven and put yourself on the docket, wah. And the tired, busy man said, oh, I ain't got time for that, which is, a ridiculous thing in hindsight. But that's the reality sometimes when you learn a lesson the hard way, and you have to remember that, and as a one to grow on. Ensure that when you're making important decisions, especially decisions about your business or something creative that you're doing or something professional that you're doing, that you take into consideration where you're at. Maybe don't make that decision at the end of the workday in between another meeting and picking up your kid. So for that, let me be clear. Any future Pitch Blacks, I will be in the building, whether I'm pitching, which, really right now, the development of this podcast, or some of my other various ideas that are in, different stages of creation and growth. So I'm going to take that energy and get us ready for my guest today, who is Richard Gilliam, a good brother I've had the opportunity to do some community work with and just connect with here in Portland. We get into a myriad of subjects, including the timely discussion, a little bit of Nipsey Hussle. Shout outs to him, respects to his family, as his, I think it's his degree day, his birthday this week. So some folks got him out there in the atmosphere. But out to, the realities of the meaning of OG, the importance of communication and relationships, community organizing, and working yourself out of a job. And there's more there, obviously. So I'll let you get into the episode and you can hear for yourself. All right. See you on the other end. Thank you for listening. Peace. Let's fire it up. Yeah. Peace. This is the Ask Your Oldhead podcast with Justice Rajee. I'm here with my guest, Richard Gilliam. Richard, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Before we get started, I'm going to ask you just, share someone or some ones that you would like to get some love or reference to before we get started.
Okay. I think that, first of all, I'd like to give reference to my daughter. She's going to be graduating from a prestigious college. This higher ranked than Reader, Lewis and Clark private school. We didn't have to bribe to get her in there. She's doing really well. We'll be going on in her schooling. She graduates in about 3 weeks. And, despite so much going on back here in Portland. She's been able to compartmentalize that and stay focused on her studies, and we're very proud of her. I like to give reference to her mother, who's those very issues she's been dealing with, a lot of medical issues, and is doing so well. I'm so proud of her strength. And then, anytime I give reverence, I have to give reverence to my mother. Like a lot of people, I was blessed to have a great, wonderful mother, who lived to be 97. She just passed away here within the last year and a half. But she, every day, it's like so interesting, man, these lessons that she taught me, and her history. We talk about somebody who was born in the South in the 20s, was almost lynched at 7 in Arkansas. Moved to, and was forced to go to. That's what precipitated her coming to Chicago, and had a wonderful life, made it through the Depression, was involved in the war effort, building radars, was involved, when they were burning down the west side of Chicago after Dr. King's assassination. She was able to, it's an interesting story she told me, concerning her, one of her bosses, who was white, who was so mean to her, and who required her to actually vouch for him to save his life, because he, they were burning, and during the uprising, as a result of Dr. King's assassination, they were, there was some violence. There was some significant violence, and she actually, despite this person being mean to her, helped him out. And so there was a lot of lessons in there, and she just continued to teach me to the day she died. So I want to give reverence to those people.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
So we'll get in. Please share a standard or principle that you try to live by, that's important to you and how you move through the work.
Well, my principle, I think, can really be embodied. It was a poem I learned many years ago. Richard Kipling's "If," that talked about, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you could trust yourself when all men doubt you and make allowance for their doubting too, and wait but not be tired of waiting or being lied about, don't give in to lies, or being hated, don't deal, with hate. Yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. I think that is one of my principles that I've had, despite whatever may happen in my life, to ensure that I am staying on point about my humility and who I am, understanding, having a firm grasp of who I am, no matter how others may try to shape what the narrative is about you. Staying true to that, I think that I've learned a lot about that. Meeting, with triumph and disaster, and treating both those imposters the same. Walking, talking with crowds and keeping your virtue, and walking with kings, losing the common touch. I think as a community organizer and working the work that I've done across the country, working in communities, dealing with powerful people, very powerful people, but also dealing on the ground level, the grassroots, and ensuring that those people are just as important as anybody that I speak with. That's been some guiding principles for me. I think that has, served me well. So.
Wow. Man, said a lot right there. So could you share, because you're one of my first guests that went specifically to the reality of like connecting with a poem and like how writing shows up. Is there, is there a particular story or anecdote you can remember about sort of kind of how you got acquainted with that particular work, or like how did that land?
Yeah,
with
yeah.
you like that?
Actually, it's funny. Honestly, I learned it through my fraternal
Okay.
connections, and this was one of the things that I learned in terms of life's lessons, and you look at it differently when you're young. When you're in your 20s. I looked at it. I said, "Wow, different people, is connected to my fraternity, like Dr. King and Thurgood and W.B. DeWars, and different folks." You said, "Wow, well they learned this. They look at how their lives, how they guided their lives. Look at the different lessons and the different challenges they had." So you put it in that context, but then as you mature, you realize, or I have realized that a lot of my experiences, especially contemporaneously, recently, a lot of my experiences, this is a very good blueprint in terms of navigating some of these issues. So that was the origin, I think, was a fraternal kind of lesson, but I've continued to like really internalize what those words say, because they mean so much. There's a lot of things mean so much as you get older. So,
All right, thank you. Second question. I'm gonna come back because there's something, but I want to circle back.
Sure. Man. This is your thing, Podfather.
Oh man, I got more titles. I'm with it.
Okay.
So relationships broadly defined.
Mm-hmm.
Is there something that you understand now about relationships that maybe you did or understood differently when you were a younger man?
Wow. Well, you know what, man? It's talking, keeping it, as they say, the young people say, keeping it real. Just keeping it real. I think that I've learned so much with respect to my intimate relationship, with my spouse. I think that I've learned so much qualitatively about being a better man, what that really means. Sometimes we associate being a good man with just that the fidelity, and that you're loyal, and you're respectful. But there's so much more, I think, to learn about being a good man and being it's not just being a provider. It's not just about monetarily, that you providing resources, but I think on a much deeper level, it has to do with understanding, the other person, and truly appreciating them and their aspirations, not just through a prism of you, but through their prism. What are their hopes? What are their dreams? What are their aspirations? How are you playing that integral role that you should play? How are you being supportive? We think that we're being supportive sometimes as men, and I know they say 90% of things is just showing up, but it's more to it than just showing up. It's constant challenge, and relationships are fluid. From a professional standpoint, I think that I've learned it's interesting. As you as you grow older, I think that you learn, what bridges to burn and what bridges to cross. Sometimes we oftentimes get so upset, and moral indignation about things, and sometimes it's justified and rightfully so. But also, you also sometimes have to put things in context. That whole thing of there are no permanent enemies. There's only permanent interests. You really kind of learn that, and as you advance professionally, and as you try to reach certain specific career or community objectives, especially in my field. I mean, dealing with politics, dealing with community organizing, and the like. You realize that you have to contextualize things, and you have to put it in the right perspective, and You know, just like, you know, you ever see The Godfather? Remember The Godfather?
Mm-hmm.
So you remember how, you know, Sonny, you know, remember he wanted to, after The Godfather was shot, he wanted to just go out and shoot up everybody, and, you know, and the concierge is telling him, hey, you know, that's personal. You know, it's not business, Sonny.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you know, keeping things in the right perspective, man. You know, sometimes we, you know, I'm a very, I don't know, heartfelt type of brother. You know, I look at things and I try to keep things real. I'm not phony. I'm a real person. People know, you know who I am and my feelings. But, you know, sometimes we can go to an extreme on that, you know, and things are so emotional, but we have to put things in context, you know, and our business relationships, you know, bring it back to that. Our business relationships, we have to, you know, put them in the right perspective and take some of the emotion out, you know. Right. So I've learned a lot on that.
All right. I like to reflect back two things on you. One, I mean, what you said about relationships, like with your spouse, is like, I think it's really, it's spot on. It's because it's something I've wrestled with. You know, I think, you know, in least in the social media channels that I'm in, you know, we do have a community conversation about relationships and love and this and that and what you're supposed to do and what men ain't supposed to do, what da da da. And that fidelity piece is in there, the provider concept. But I think sometimes what does that really mean behaviorally? Like how you know, if you're thinking about tuning in to know if you're really being that entity that you're talking about in real time. And then I think the most important thing that you said there, I wanted to highlight, was the idea through the other person's prism, like not through what you think. Like, oh, I checked all the boxes, I'm good money. Because I worry that sometimes, and myself, as I like to say, I'm an older, younger man. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a young man no more. But I know I'm not like an older man, right? So I'm a younger, older man. I'm still in the first part of being older. Though is really seeing other men struggle with like clarity around why they're in a relationship or what they're supposed to be doing, or lamenting like, I did this and that, so she should be happy. And it's like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Is there any just a nugget you would maybe share around, like, if it doesn't seem to be working out, something that you could, you know, maybe tip a young brother to do introspectively, maybe, or that you would just, you know, sight unseen, not knowing any details, but just like on a general level.
You know, I would say, man, that the most important currency that you have in a relationship, I think, and I really believe this, man, and it's born true with me, is communication. That's everything. And it sounds corny and it sounds overly simplistic, but, you know, when all the other stuff, you know, when all the intimacy, all the other stuff is challenged, you know, you never know, the person that you love may indeed suffer some sort of physical debilitation or constraints. Can you talk? Can you talk through things? Can you, when things are difficult, you know, and things are challenging, do you have the ability to listen? You know, one of the things that we often say is, wow, I could listen. I could, you know, I could just let the woman talk, man. You know, I could just, you know, just benignly just listen. But are you hearing her? Okay, you could listen, but are you hearing her? And I think that's, if it was any advice I would give to, you know, a young brother, young person involved in a relationship, is the importance of communication. And communication is not just yapping. Communication is not just checking off the box. You know, okay, I listened to how her day was, you know, even though I was thinking about, you know, the Blazer game or whatever, you know. So, but really focusing and never underestimating the power of the question, what do you think? Sincerely asking that, what do you think? In my experience, I think that is a critical question. Oftentimes your partner, I think, at least in my experience, you asked me my perspective, that really means a lot to know what they think, and it's not that you're not on high, saying, hey, dictating this is how things going to be. This thing of us as men, yeah, I'm the man in this relationship, whatever. Yes, you are biologically the man in this relationship. However, from a communication standpoint, there's got to be equality. So we're not supposed to get into music yet. So I'm gonna say Teddy. I could Teddy Pendergrass wrote a song like that.
Say something about it.
When he was talking about his old school music about, not 70-20, not 60-40.
Oh yeah, that's
but
what 50,
yeah. See, that's the whole thing, man. Is back in the day, this music really meant something, and that could be another advisory. I mean, listen to some of these old love songs, man. Some of this stuff is really deep, and some of this stuff is very instructive.
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna come back to that. I'm a Teddy Pendergrass fan.
Okay.
So
I just tell you about my Philly days, man.
I'm gonna circle back.
Okay. All right.
And I just wanted to one other thing too, because being a professional in community organizing, right? And I think building community with people and really what that means, I think some of the things we're trying to do socially and civically and whatever, I think some of the suffering is that we may have some connection and we have some time together, but I fear that we're not getting as much actual community happening with people, right? So people are coming to the meetings and they're active and this and that, and then some people just ain't, some people just are not coming to none of the meetings. But even within those people that are there, like that, let me know if you think, is community building, is it more than just knowing, to each other? Like what is something that you would say is at the essence of community building, from your professional experience?
I think, and no matter what community I've worked in, South and West Side Chicago, North Philly, West Philly, DC, here, I think what's at the essence of it is, first of all, we have to understand that we're at a place in time right now, April 2019. Folk are dealing with fight or flight, man. Folk are dealing with, struggle. It's a struggle out here. We're in an environment that's very hostile. Okay, we're in an environment that, if you're asking someone to come to a meeting, in our reality, man, folk have to work, especially here. Let's look at the economics of it. Folks have to work 2 and 3 jobs, man, just to survive, just to pay for housing. And then they're making choices about, real choices about, medicine and necessities like that. So I think we have to recognize just the urgency that we're in, and we have to recognize that the constraints that are on folks. But we also have to, I think, if we're going to engage our communities, if we're going to get our communities involved with, being part of the struggle, we have to be authentic. You just can't cook up the meal and serve it to the community. The community has to be involved with going to the grocery store. The community has to be involved with the preparation of the meal and all that. I know I'm talking metaphorically here, but I'm saying that we have to bring community more into the process much earlier and be more authentic. And we also have to understand that there are some real historical issues. That's one of the things I learned, and luckily I already had those sensibilities. But That's one of the things I learned here in Portland, or affirmed here in Portland, not learned, affirmed here in Portland, because I knew that I needed to do my homework to understand that I'm not from here, even though I've been here for a while. But we have to understand the harm that's been done to communities. And when you're able to do that, you're able to make a requisite reconciliation with that community where, you actually are healing. Okay, I mean, 2019 is a real issue about reparations. Okay, it's a real issue about the history of this state and racism. It's a real issue about nationally, about our struggle and our experience here as Black folks here. 400 years from ironically, from us being brought forcibly into this country, and there's some real issues about how we need to reconcile and realize, man, that the history on that. So,
all right, Pete, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, can you share something that's really important to you right now in your life? Just something that's just it's up there, it's high on the list, or just something significant.
There's a lot that's important. I think one of the things that really jumps out at me at this stage in my life, as being a little older brother, is that it's so important for me not to be in a mode of acquiring material things. It's not what I acquire and how much money I make, how much I acquire. Money is, you got to pay bills and you got to handle your business, but I also think that, simply stated, it's not about the money right now for me. It's about the legacy that I leave. And that manifests itself in a lot of different ways. That manifests itself in terms of me being a father, when I'm instilling, in my children, what legacy I leave them. Even, we met during a mentorship effort. What I'm imparting on young people, I'm I don't know why this thought just came up. I'm thinking about last summer. I passed by this park in Southeast, man, and it was these young brothers and young Latino brothers, and they were playing basketball. And so I'm like, I try to keep myself in shape, and I'm literally about 3 times these guys' age, And so, I got out of my car, man, and I was playing ball with them, and I'm like, man, they accepted me, man. They not like, this is granddad, And so they were accepting me, and I'm like, yeah, I'm like one of them, huh? I'm kidding myself. So this brother slammed on me, and so I was like, oh man. And so then I went into my old man thing. I dare you slam over there. Oh, you owe me. That's disrespectful. I dare you. I dare you do that. And then, but it offers it when you build relationships, and this is getting back to my community organizing, which is essential with respect to building relationships, real relationships. So you build relationships, I'm talking to young brothers, hey, what school you go to? Yeah, so what do you want to do with your life? Blah, blah, blah. This is like during the breaks, a little break. So then I come back. I remember coming back later in the summer, because I've been there, I was there about 5-6 times. But like toward the last part of the summer, I went back up there, and they were playing, and so I hear them talking, man, when I was walking up. They're like, OG back, OG is back. and so I was like, yeah, this is a teachable moment right here. So I go up and I said, what do you mean about OG, man? What do you mean about OG? He said, man, you know what I mean about OG, old gangster, original gangster. I said, no, brother, it's original gentleman, okay? And it got with this whole riff conversation about being a gentleman, okay? About how important that is, how distinctive that is, how all that gangster stuff, you know, that plays out. You know, y'all haven't seen or anything that I haven't seen. You know, I'm telling them, hey, I'm from the South Side of Chicago. Feel me? So, so it was a teachable moment, man. I could see in their face, it was like, wow, okay. He said original. He said old gentleman.
That's
gentleman.
Yeah. Spin on it.
Yeah. It put a new spin on it, man.
Where they, I mean, I could, you probably had that moment where you could see him going. Because you know they saying it from a like, you know, we respect you, we dig you, but then letting them know like, you know, like one, I'm taking it and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
However, also, like, be a gentleman, man. Like it don't have to be gangster. It could be something else.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, you know what I mean? Then
yeah.
That's peace, man. I think I mean, something that you displayed in that story that I want to reflect back is just because often, especially with young people, and people that are younger than us, sometimes folks are like, yeah, somebody need to go down there, tell them kids to do this and to do that and to make them. And it's for me, with my background in education and being in human services and working with people, and I came to accept it, I think, before the profession did in terms of social service and education. But acknowledging at some point, if you really don't want to do this, it don't matter how hard or how punitive or whatever I am, you ain't gonna do it. And so I need to respect your agency and go, all right, looks like you just ain't really trying to do this today. And even if I gotta say, listen, this is what we doing today. If for love for me, because you like Rajee, give me 20 minutes on it, and then man, go over there, read a book. Go play on your phone, whatever. But give me a moment, you know what I mean? Because I need to respect the idea that you let me know when I got the bridge, right? And so within that, you know what I mean, they let you know like, oh, all right. So you was coming in their space, you was coming into their world where they was kicking it, doing their thing, and you was being a part of it. And then when the time presented itself, you added something on, right? Where if the first day y'all was playing ball, if they had called you OG and you did that, they may or may not have received it the same way. Right? You know what I mean? And I think it's just this reality of spending time. I mean, I think, that's a really big thing that's
well,
important.
as mentors, man, that's like a golden rule. These young people are very, very sophisticated, and they know they got a good detector about, if you're not real or not, okay? And one of the most important things of mentorship, as you know, is sustaining those relationships, man. Not being episodic about, I mean, sometimes you're there, sometimes you're not. Sometimes there's constraints where you physically can't be there, but there may be other ways to connect. I mean, I saw a young man that I was mentoring 2 years ago from Ockley Green. And he and his mom, and she, he hugged me, and then when he kind of walked away, she was like, "I want to thank you because now he, wants to go to college. He wants to study government. He wants to start a Black student union at his school." And all of that, and I'm like, wow, that was like so powerful to me, man. That's one of the biggest testaments to me, man. So,
oh man, that's good stuff right there.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna make a pivot on it.
Okay.
Cool. So I know you're from Chicago. Is there something that, I mean, Chicago's been in. I mean, it's died down a little bit, at least in the media coverage that as it was. But there was a peak point, maybe about 2 years ago, where it was like, I mean, and some of that was definitely a political tactic to be like,
sure,
it's just Chicago as this like counterpoint to certain policies, right? Like, oh, but look at the violence in Chicago, that kind of thing,
right?
Which but is there something about Chicago that you want to make sure we hear? You know what I mean? That's a part of your own, where you grew up, or something about your formative experience, or something about Chicago from whatever perspective that you want to make sure that folks know about or look for.
Well, first of all, I would say that, in just in recent days, they just elected the first Black woman Black woman's leading the third largest city in our country now. She's a openly lesbian person, and she has made it a point to work with all the communities and look at things from a grassroots perspective. And I say that to say, her opponent, I'm extremely close to. People asking me, was I going to be going back there working for her, Tony Preckwinkle? And she was trounced, of course, in the election. However, I think what I would want people to know is that beyond the 700 plus murders you hear about it every year, beyond some of these sensational headlines, there are folks who have been working in these communities for years. They're unheralded. When you talk about Chirac, it doesn't conjure up images of them. And they've worked very hard under some very extremely tough circumstances. 50 plus schools being closed, complete transformation of public housing and dispersal of folks. Gentrification. So many different issues, but beyond that, folks working diligently to try to maintain. And I'm very proud, a city that was founded by a black man, Jean-Baptiste de Sabo. It's a lot of pride there, a lot of pride in the communities there. Albeit there's a lot of challenges, but I would want people to know beyond these sensational headlines in the third largest city that there are some people, it's easy, simplistic, overly simplistic to say there's some really good people. It's really good people. There's really good people everywhere. It's like, I'm pro school,
Yeah.
I'm saying, this
school is good.
Yeah. So I'm saying, man, but it's some really, really, folks who, and they don't want headlines. These are folks that they shy away from the headline, who have been working diligently in these communities despite increasing challenges, man. So that's all I would say is that there are some hardworking, community-minded folks there. Look beyond the headlines, and contextualize this stuff. Beyond the controversies and empire and all this other stuff. So, yeah.
All right. All right. I want to do 2 questions just because honoring our time, I don't want to lose them. So, first one would be more heavy, and the second one would be more not.
Oh man, you set me up, man.
I'm setting you up.
All right, man.
So, because something I did that you did want to make sure I think that you could share a nugget. Is there anything you would give for someone that's looking to go into community organizing and service and working in those capacities? Just a word to the wise that you would want to give someone to prepare themselves to deal with the rigor of that experience. Because a part of the challenge of working in government, working in community service or in community organizing is that you're close to the issues. And issues that are heartfelt and important. And sometimes the other side of that is when someone opposes you or opposes the issue, it's like they're opposing you as a person. So I was thinking that you would be someone that could maybe just give someone that's looking towards that future just something that you would want them to get ready to do or prepare themselves to be able to manage that experience.
Well, it's and this is going to sound so bizarre, this statement I'm going to say. But prepare yourself on a regular basis, if you're working in community organizing, that if you're doing this job properly, you're always working yourself out of a job. Now, I want to explain that, because people say, wait a minute now, why is this old head talking about, working yourself out? Don't he want the young people to have continued employment? No, what I mean by that is as you're working on community organizing projects, that you need to always keep the perspective that you are not giving someone catfish. You are teaching them how to fish for catfish so that they can, fish for catfish when you're gone.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, paraphrase the old. I had to put it on catfish. I don't know why I got catfish on my mind, man. I must be hungry. But anyway, yeah,
it's
man.
that time of day.
Yeah, man. So that's the thing, man. Is that understand that part of this work is empowering people so that they can they've empowered themselves and they can empower their communities where they don't need you. It's not a permanent situation where you are continually organizing, because there's different campaigns, there are different contexts, but you want folks to be able to fight for themselves. You want people. You want to be able to teach people. If you've done this correctly, you have empowered them to henceforth be able to fight for the issues, and henceforth be able to teach others. So it's a continuum. So I would say that to a young person that, and also understand, if this is something where you're looking, where you just, I've been lucky to have different positions in my career that some were higher paying than others. If you're looking to immediately, get this 6-figure salary, it's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. And you need to ask yourself, what was your motivations for going into that? What are your motivations, rather, for going into this work? So those are two things immediately that I would think of.
Thank you. So, on a lighter note, so we mentioned you're my man Teddy, and I like music and I like talking music when I can. And so I had an idea when you brought that up. What would be your three right now Teddy Pendergrass involved songs? So it don't just need to be him by himself. It could be with the Blue Notes.
Okay.
Could be,
Okay. I would say the first one that immediately comes up to me, excuse me, would be Wake Up. There's never been a better time or more important time to be woke. There's never been a better time for all aspects of our community, our teachers, our builders, to be woke. And as you know, Teddy and the Blue Notes, enunciated that very well in that song, Wake Up Everybody. That was real important. Coming back from interpersonal challenges, relationship challenges. We had talked about at the outset about advice about relationships, love TKO, listen.
Let it go.
Yeah, man, you got,
let it go. I can't even hit it right
now. But, and that's two that really comes out at me, and we have to emotionally manage ourselves. I'm thinking about the one song, about it not hurting now, and you have to emotionally manage ourselves. Otherwise we go under. And so those are three immediate songs. I mean, there's other songs that he has that
it's a catalog. It's a catalog. That's why I try not to.
No, I
lived in the moment.
When I lived in Philly, I heard so many interesting stories about Teddy and fascinating stories about Teddy Pendergrass, man, and it was a fascinating career, fascinating life, no doubt. I'm from Trenton and grew up in Willingboro and in the Philadelphia area. So culturally, Sound of Philadelphia music and DAS and all that is my, as I like to tell my kids, like to other kids, like I didn't listen to children's music, I listened to DAS. That's right.
You know what I mean? So my reference point for like being 4, listening to something is Teddy Pendergrass and Sound of Philadelphia and whatever DAS was playing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So,
well, think about that music that came out of the sound of Philadelphia. I mean, the music was very, very powerful, man. Very powerful. I was fortunate enough when I was a legislative director in the Philadelphia City Council to work on some community development projects with, of all people, Kenny Gamble. So Kenny Gamble wasn't just about music, man. Kenny Gamble was about community building. In South Philly, we were working on different projects where we were doing, community development projects, bringing infrastructure and community economic development into this one section of South Philadelphia. I was so proud of him, sitting down with him and saying, wow, this is an architect of one of the most important segments of music history. The OJs, the Blue Notes, the Intruders. Think about this music. I always love my mama. All of this. Think about, all the stuff, the OJs, some of the music they had. I mean, this was really deep and resounding and timeless music. But to know that it wasn't just about as a lyricist, or it wasn't just about as a technician, a producer, that he and Mr. Huff, were doing this music, but that he actually embodied the importance of community building and of community, and to see that happen, X amount of years later in real time, and working with him on projects was really beautiful.
Well, I think you landed on a spot that I want to just start to bring us in, because I think that is I think you encapsulate something there, and I guess I'll reflect back. It's just the that being about creativity does not exclude the also idea of being about your community too, right? And I think that's an important thing to highlight there.
Well, we just witnessed that, right?
Yeah.
With Nipsey, right?
Yeah.
Nipsey Hussle, right? He would go down, the pantheon of rappers as being one of the most beloved rappers, because it wasn't just about the talent, but it was about that he recognized the importance of investing in his community. Reportedly, all those businesses that he developed there, all the different projects he was working on in terms of trying to make his community better, is stuff that really, really matters, and that lives beyond. And that goes back to, when I was talking about you asked me about what was important to me right now at this juncture in my life, and about, it's not just about acquiring monetary rewards. It's about your legacy. It's about what do you leave. And so that whole thing about your creativity as a nexus to you being able to use that same imagination in making your community better, I think is essential.
All right, man. Well, Richard, I want to say thank you.
Thank you, man.
For joining me today.
Thank you.
Something you know, once you've been on the show once, you're welcome to come back.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? So we can go deeper on a couple topics and tips.
Absolutely.
Anything for the good of the order before I let us go?
Well, I just want to say, man, I'm very appreciative and honored that you would even, want an old head like me to be on your show, man, and that it is so important what you're doing, because you are enshrining some of the wisdom, intergenerational wisdom. There may be a young person that heard one thing that I said, or one thing that one of your guests said, that made a difference. And I just think that this is so important, this intergenerational connections, right now. And thank you for being a vehicle, and your show being a vehicle for doing such.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
This has been the Ask Your Oldhead podcast with Justice Rajee. Thank you for joining us. Peace. Thank you for listening to the Ask Your Oldhead podcast. Ask Your Oldhead is a creative project exploring modern manhood at the intersection of race, gender, culture, and class. Thank you to my guest, Richard Gilliam, for sharing his stories and his wisdom. Thank you to you the listener, for adding on and engaging with what we had to say today. Please look out and contact me on social media at Justice Rajee anywhere. Also, you can look for the Ask Your Oldhead page on Facebook if you're a Facebook user. I want to thank Stream PDX. This episode was recorded in the Stream van at the Open Signal right here in Portland. And also I want to thank Capital Consulting, where some of the post-production work took place. Most of all, I want to thank everybody in every community that enjoys and relishes the best part of where they're at and understands the value of being proud of where you're from and also being mindful of where you're going. And with that, I'm going to say peace.